The night was quiet inside the tall glass tower. The city outside was alive with lights, cars, and noise, but in his office, everything was silent. The man sat behind a desk made of black steel and shining glass. His name was David Kane. To most people, he was powerful, untouchable, and cold. He owned companies, factories, and ships. Thousands of workers served under him. He believed nothing could surprise him anymore. But he was wrong. When the clock struck midnight, he looked up from his computer screen. Something strange was happening. The air in the office felt heavy. The shadows on the walls moved as if they were alive. David narrowed his eyes. He was not a man who believed in ghosts or magic. He trusted numbers, money, and power. Yet that night, he felt something watching him. And then, she appeared. It was not a sound or a knock. 1 second, the room was empty. The next, a girl stood by the window, her figure outlined by the city lights. She looked no older than 20. Her skin was pale silver, glowing faintly as if moonlight lived under her skin. Her hair fell straight down, shining like dark water. And her eyes were not human. They were bright, endless, and carried the weight of stars. David's hand moved quickly to the gun hidden in his drawer. "Who are you?" His voice was sharp. "How did you get in here?" The girl did not move. She stood calm, as if the danger meant nothing. Her lips parted, and her voice was soft but clear. "Someone is robbing from you." David froze. His fingers stopped on the gun. The words were simple, yet they cut deep. "Robbing from me?" he repeated. He tried to laugh, but his voice was tight. "Impossible. No one dares." The girl tilted her head. "They already have, right under your eyes." David's mind raced. Every part of him wanted to throw her out, call security, and forget this strange encounter. But her eyes, though, so strange, shining eyes, held him still. They were not the eyes of a liar. They carried truth, danger, and warning. He leaned back slowly, studying her. "You break into my office to tell me a story?" His tone was cold, but his pulse was fast. The girl stepped closer, silent as air. "Not a story. A warning. You are losing everything, piece by piece. And if you do not act, soon, you will have nothing left." For the first time in years, David Kane felt something he hated: fear. He looked at her again. She had no weapon, no badge of authority. She was not from this world, he could see it. The way she glowed faintly in the dark, the way she spoke with calm certainty. An alien. That was the only answer. "Why should I believe you?" he asked finally. His voice was lower now. The girl's gaze locked with his. "Because I have no reason to lie, and because I am not the only one watching you." Those words made the office colder. The shadows seemed to crawl closer. David's throat felt dry. He stood up, trying to show strength. "If someone is robbing me, I will find them. I don't need warnings from strangers." The girl gave a faint smile, almost sad. "You will not find them in time. Not unless you act now. Trust no one. Not even the people you see every day." Her words sank deep into his mind. Trust no one. Before he could speak again, she began to fade. Her body shimmered like smoke in the wind, and then she was gone. The room was empty once more, as if she had never been there. David stood alone, his hands tight on the desk. His heart was beating hard in his chest. He hated this feeling. Suspicion, weakness, fear. But the words would not leave him. "Someone is robbing from you." He turned to the large glass wall, staring at the city lights. How could it be true? His security was the best, his staff was loyal, his systems were locked. No one could steal from him. And yet, Doubt crept into his mind like poison. He opened his computer again. Numbers filled the screen. Balance sheets, transactions, shipments. Everything looked normal. But now, every detail seemed suspicious. Every figure seemed false. What if she was right? David clenched his fist. If someone was stealing from him, they would pay. And if his staff was betraying him, they would all suffer. The night grew darker. The city lights seemed farther away. In the silence of his office, David Kane whispered to himself, "I will find the thief, even if I must burn everything to the ground." But he did not know. This was only the beginning. David Kane did not sleep that night. He sat in his office, staring at the numbers on his computer screen. The alien girl's words echoed again and again in his head. "Someone is robbing from you. Trust no one." At first, he told himself it was nonsense. He was too careful, too powerful. His systems had layers of protection, his staff was hand-picked, and every move in his empire was watched. Still, doubt had now planted itself inside his mind like a seed. And the more he looked, the more he began to see cracks. A small shipment gone missing here, a financial record that did not add up there. At first glance, these things seemed too small to matter, but together they formed a pattern, a shadow moving across his empire. David's chest tightened. He remembered the alien girl's silver eyes. She had not begged, she had not asked. She had spoken like a soldier delivering truth. And now the truth was crawling into his world. By morning, David walked through the grand hall of his tower. His staff greeted him as always, polite, careful, afraid to displease him. Secretaries, assistants, and guards all gave their usual smiles. But now, every smile looked fake. Every word sounded like a lie. "Good morning, sir." "Your meeting is ready, sir." "Coffee, sir?" Each voice sounded dangerous. Who among them was stealing from him? Who was the traitor? His heart beat harder. For the first time, David looked at his MP, not with pride, but with suspicion. That day, he sat at the long table with his most trusted advisors. They spoke about contracts, new factories, and profits. He watched them carefully. Their eyes shifted. Their hands moved over papers. Their voices were calm. Too calm. One man, his chief financial officer, spoke about the company's accounts. "Everything is stable," the man said, his smile wide. "All resources are secure." David's jaw clenched. Secure? He had seen the missing shipments with his own eyes. He had seen the numbers twisted out of shape. And yet here was his trusted officer, speaking smooth lies. Was it him? Or was it someone else? The girl's warning whispered in his mind again. "Right under your eyes." That night, David locked his office doors and checked the records himself. He traced the numbers line by line, hour by hour. His empire was bleeding, slowly, quietly. A small cut here, another there, always hidden, always disguised. Someone was stealing without fear. Someone inside. The air in his office grew colder. His hands tightened on the desk. He thought of the alien girl again. Why had she come to him? Why warn him? She could have let him fall. Instead, she gave him a chance. But why? The question burned in his mind, but the answer did not matter now. One thing was clear. The thief was real, and the thief was close. For 3 nights in a row, David could not sleep. He walked the halls of his tower like a ghost. Cameras followed him, guards saluted him, staff smiled nervously. But none of it gave him comfort. The empire he built now felt like a cage filled with snakes. Any one of his workers could be striking at him, hiding behind loyalty while stabbing him in the dark. The fear grew inside him, heavier each day. It was not the fear of losing money or ships. It was the fear of being blind, of being fooled, of being powerless. David Kane hated nothing more than weakness. On the 4th night, he made his decision. If he could not find the snake among his people, then he would cut down the entire garden. His voice echoed in the empty office as he whispered to himself, "I will end this. All of them." The next morning, his staff gathered in the hall as usual. They expected another day of work, but when David stepped out, his face was harder than stone. "Every one of you," he said, his voice cold and sharp, "is dismissed, effective immediately." Gasps filled the hall. His assistants looked at each other, shocked. His guards froze. Secretaries cried out. Some begged him to reconsider, others shouted in anger. But David did not listen. The alien girl had said to trust no one, and now he trusted no one. His empire was silent as hundreds of workers left the building, their footsteps echoing down the marble floors. The once busy tower became an empty shell. David stood alone in the middle of it, his heart beating fast. Fear had turned into rage. Rage had turned into action. But deep inside, he wondered, had he just saved himself? Or had he made the biggest mistake of his life? The night returned, quiet and heavy. David sat in the dark office once again. He thought he was alone. But then he felt it, the same strange weight in the air. The alien girl was back. She stood in the shadows, her silver glow faint in the darkness. Her voice was calm, almost sad. "You did as I said," she whispered. "But the thief is still close." David's eyes widened. His fear returned, sharper than ever. If not his staff, then who? And the shadows in the room seemed to whisper back at him. The tower was empty now. Where once hundreds of workers filled the halls with voices, footsteps, and the sound of machines, silence now ruled. The great glass building felt like a tomb. David Kane sat alone in his office high above the city. He had fired them all, every assistant, every guard, every trusted hand. Gone. The alien girl's warning had driven him to this. Trust no one. For 2 days, David felt a strange power. No traitors could hide if there was no one left to betray him. His empire stood still, like a giant beast that no longer breathed. But power without people was also weakness. Ships did not move, deals did not close, messages piled up unanswered. And still, the numbers on his screen changed. Resources continued to vanish. Data disappeared from his systems. Even with no staff left, the bleeding continued. David's fear turned into something darker. If not his people, then who? On the third night, his anger broke free. He smashed a glass against the wall, the shards scattering across the floor. His voice thundered in the empty office. Enough! He would not wait to be robbed blind. He would not sit in silence while his empire was eaten alive. He had built everything with his own hands, his own will. No one would take it away. David made his choice. He would hunt the thief himself. The next morning, he locked down the tower. All outside access was cut. Security systems sealed every floor. Cameras, drones, and scanners watched every corner. He turned his office into a fortress. But it was not enough. The girl's words returned. "You are not the only one watching." That thought burned in his skull. He opened his private files, systems no one but him had touched. There, hidden deep inside, he found something chilling. Footprints. Not the footprints of shoes, digital footprints. Invisible hands had been moving through his networks, searching, copying, stealing. They had entered where only he should have been able to go. His jaw tightened. This was no human thief. No employee could have done this. That night, the alien girl appeared again. David had been waiting. He did not reach for his gun this time. He stared at her with fury. "You knew," he said, his voice low and sharp. "Even after I destroyed my staff, the theft continues. You knew it was not them." The girl stood calm, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "I told you, the thief is still close." David's hands slammed against the desk. "Then who is it? Tell me." For the first time, her expression changed. Her calm face turned sad. If I tell you now, you will not believe me. You must see for yourself. Only then will you understand." David laughed bitterly. "Understand? I don't need riddles. I need answers." The girl shook her head. "The decision is already made. You chose fear over trust. That path cannot be undone." Her words struck him like knives. Fear over trust. Yes, he had chosen fear. But was there any other choice? Could he have trusted his people when the proof of theft was in front of him? David's heart raged inside his chest. He would not be played like this. Not by his staff, not by enemies, not even by this alien girl. For days, he hunted. He tore into his own systems, searching for the invisible hands that robbed him. He followed the digital footprints through locked gates, secret paths, and hidden codes. Each time he came close, they vanished. Each time he thought he had cornered the thief, the trail slipped away like smoke. The sleepless nights wore on him. His eyes grew dark, his hands shook with rage. He had once been feared as a man of control. Now he looked like a man possessed. And then he found something. A hidden key buried deep inside his servers. A key that did not belong. A signature not human. His blood went cold. The thief was not just close. The thief was inside. David stared at the code glowing on his screen. He whispered to himself, voice heavy with dread. It's her. The alien girl. The one who had warned him. The one who had told him to destroy his staff. She had been there all along, moving through his systems, guiding him toward paranoia, stripping him of allies until he stood alone. Rage flared like fire, in his chest. He grabbed the gun from his drawer and turned, expecting to see her standing in the shadows. But the room was empty. Only the faint echo of her voice remained in his mind. This is only the beginning. David sank back into his chair, his hand trembling around the gun. He had made his decision. He had chosen to fire them all, to stand alone, to hunt blindly. But now he realized the truth was darker than fear. The thief was not only robbing him of money and power, the thief was robbing him of trust. And with trust gone, what did he have left? The tower no longer felt like an empire, it felt like a cage. Every floor was dark. Offices once filled with voices, papers, and footsteps now stood empty. Desks collected dust. Lights flickered without reason. Even the hum of machines seemed quieter, as though the building itself was holding its breath. David Kane walked through it alone. His shoes echoed on the marble floors. The sound of his own steps followed him everywhere, mocking him, reminding him he was the last man left in a kingdom built for thousands. He had fired them all. Secretaries, advisors, guards, every loyal worker. At the time, it felt like strength. Now, it felt like punishment. In the quiet, his paranoia grew. The numbers on his screens still bled. Small losses, quiet cuts, hidden thefts. He had removed every human hand, and still the shadow stole from him. That meant only one thing: the alien girl. He replayed their meetings in his head, her sudden appearances, her silver glow, the way she spoke in riddles, like she was both warning him and guiding him. Had she planned this? Was he her prey? The thought tore at his mind. At night, he sat in his office with the curtains open, staring at the city lights. The city was alive. Millions of people moving, laughing, fighting, surviving. Yet here, at the top of his tower, David was alone. Alone with his doubts. Alone with his fear. The walls seemed to whisper. The glass reflected shapes that did not exist. Sometimes, he thought he saw her silver figure standing in the shadows of the room. But when he turned, no one was there. Sleep abandoned him. Food lost its taste. His empire of power felt like sand slipping through his hands. On the 5th night of his solitude, she returned. No sound, no warning. She was simply there, standing near the window as though she had always belonged to the shadows. Her silver skin glowed faintly, casting strange reflections across the glass. David's hand gripped the gun on his desk. His voice was sharp. "Enough games. It's you. You're the one robbing me." The girl tilted her head, calm as ever. "If I wished to rob you, David Kane, you would already have nothing." Her words cut like blades. His finger twitched on the trigger. But her eyes, those endless, starlit eyes, made him hesitate. "What do you want?" he demanded. "Why warn me? Why come back?" She stepped closer, her voice soft. "Because you are still in danger. You burned your house to find the snake, but the snake still coils around you." His chest tightened. "If it's not my people, then who?" Her expression darkened, almost human with sorrow. "It is bigger than them. Bigger than you. What you call theft is only the beginning. They are testing your strength, breaking your trust, preparing you for collapse." David shook his head. "Who are they?" "The ones behind the curtain," she said. "The ones who fear your kind may rise too high." Her words sank into him like poison. If what she said was true, then this was no small betrayal. This was war. Silent, invisible war. David leaned back, exhausted, his voice a whisper. "And you? Why help me?" For the first time, her eyes softened. "Because I have seen your kind fight before. You burn brighter than you know. And I—" She paused, her voice trembling for a moment. "I do not wish to see you broken before the battle even begins." David stared at her. For the first time since she appeared, he saw not only a warning in her eyes, but also something else. Pity, maybe even fear. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, she stepped back into the shadows. "You are alone now," she said, "and that makes you dangerous. But it also makes you fragile. Remember this: strength without trust is weakness in disguise." With that, she faded away, vanishing into the night as before. David was left staring at the empty room. His gun lay heavy in his hand. Strength without trust. He thought of the faces of the people he had fired, the loyal ones who had served him for years, the workers who had never betrayed him. Had he thrown away his shield in his rush to strike? The alien girl's warning circled in his mind. He wanted to believe she was lying, manipulating him. But deep inside, he knew she was right about one thing. He was alone. And alone, he was weaker than he had ever been. The city outside moved on, bright and alive. But inside the tower, David Kane sat in silence, surrounded by shadows that felt closer every night. And somewhere in that silence, he swore he could still hear her voice whispering, "The thief is still close." The tower was silent as always, but David's mind was louder than ever. He had not spoken to anyone in weeks. He lived in the shadows of his own empire, trapped between suspicion and fear. Each night he returned to the screens, the endless flow of numbers and codes. They were the only voices left in his life. They whispered to him in patterns, showing him what was stolen, where the trails began, and where they ended in nothingness. But on this night, something was different. David leaned closer to the glowing monitor. His hands, tired from days without rest, hovered over the keys. His heart beat harder. A hidden layer of code appeared. Something buried so deep, it seemed impossible that it had been overlooked. There it was, a digital mark, a signature. Not numbers, not names, but a sequence of symbols glowing faintly like a fingerprint left in fire. And it was not human. David's throat went dry. He knew this pattern. He had seen it before. He had seen it in her eyes. The alien girl. She had been inside his systems all along. David pushed back from the desk, his chair screeching against the floor. Rage shot through him like lightning. He grabbed his gun and stormed across the room, scanning every corner, every shadow. "Show yourself!" he roared, his voice echoing off the glass walls. "You think you can play me? You think I'm your fool?" Silence answered him. He fired a shot into the ceiling, the sound cracking through the night. "Come out!" And then she appeared, calm, silent, silver, standing by the window again, as if the city lights themselves had shaped her body. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes glowed like twin stars. David pointed the gun at her chest. His hands shook with fury. "It was you, the theft, the lies, the warnings. You were inside my systems. You destroyed everything." The girl did not flinch. She looked at him with quiet sadden. "Yes," she said softly. The word hit him harder than a bullet. David's finger tightened on the trigger. "Why?" The girl took a step closer. Her voice was calm, but heavy with something more than guilt. "Because if I did not, you would never have believed me. You would never have seen the truth. I had to move the pieces so you could see the board." Her words only made his rage burn hotter. "You made me fire them, all of them, my people, my empire. You left me with nothing." She shook her head gently. "No, they were already gone. The enemy had their hands in every corner. I only showed you what you refused to see. You had power, but you trusted too much, and they were taking it from you, piece by piece." David's voice cracked with fury. "And I'm supposed to thank you? You robbed me to save me?" Her eyes flickered, a storm behind the silver glow. "If I had not, you would already be dead." The gun in David's hand felt heavy. He wanted to pull the trigger, end the game, erase her from his sight, but a darker part of him wanted answers more than blood. He lowered the weapon slightly, his voice low and dangerous. "If you are not the thief, then who is?" The girl's gaze locked with his. "They are not one person. They are many. A network. A shadow behind shadows. They are not after your wealth. They are after you. They fear what you represent." David frowned. "Represent? You humans," she whispered. "You climb fast. Faster than they expected. Faster than they want. Some fear what will happen if you rise too high, so they weaken you from within, and you were their perfect target." The word sent a cold wave through David. This was not about money, not about betrayal from staff. This was something larger, an invisible war. But his rage still boiled. "And you? Where do you stand in this war?" Her silence was long. Finally she spoke, almost in a whisper. "I am not your enemy, David Kane. I am the only reason you are still alive." The weight of her words pressed against his chest. He wanted to deny them, wanted to call her a liar, but deep inside he knew she was telling the truth, or at least part of it. The city lights flickered through the window as the night deepened. David lowered the gun completely, but his hand still trembled. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice cold. The alien girl's expression grew grim. "Now you must prepare. What you have seen is only the surface. The real enemy is coming, and they will not stop until you are broken, or until you fight back." She turned, her body fading into the shadows once again. Before she disappeared, her voice lingered in the air like a final warning. This was never about theft. This was about survival. David sat alone in the silence once more, the gun heavy in his lap. His empire was gone, his people scattered, his trust shattered. But now he saw something clearer than ever before. This was not the end of his fight. It was the beginning of a war. The days that followed were not peaceful. They were heavy, like the calm before a storm. David Kane no longer searched for missing shipments or stolen credits. Those details felt meaningless now. His empire's bleeding was not theft. It was sabotage. He understood that at last. Someone, or something, had been cutting into his strength, not for money, but to weaken him, to prepare him for the kill. And he could feel the hunters closing in. The first sign came in the form of a message, not on paper, not on a screen. The message appeared on every monitor in his tower at once. The cameras in the hallways flickered. The lights dimmed, And then words appeared across the glass walls of his office, glowing red. "You have been warned. Step down." David's jaw tightened. He stood in the empty office, staring at the words that burned like fire across every screen, his hands clenched into fists. Step down? Never. He whispered to himself, his voice low but steady. "Let them come, T." At night, she returned. The alien girl stood in the corner of his office, her silver glow faint, her expression grave. "They have revealed themselves," she said softly. David spun toward her, fury and determination in his eyes. "Who are they? I want names. Faces. No more riddles." The girl shook her head. "They are not a single name, not a single face. They are a council, hidden, powerful, ancient, some human, some not. They do not act in the open. They use shadows, whispers, betrayal." David's voice sharpened. "And now they've come for me." Her eyes met his. "Yes. You were too strong, too fast. They feared you might rise beyond their control. So they decided to break you before you became a threat." Before he could answer, the tower shook. The lights flickered again, this time not from a message. A deep, echoing boom rumbled through the walls. Glass trembled. David grabbed his gun, his instincts sharp. "What was that?" The girl's eyes glowed brighter. "They are here." Another boom, louder this time. The sound of shattering glass filled the air. Drones, sleek, black, armed with red lights, swarmed into the building, smashing through the upper floors. Their engines whined, their weapons glowed. David's heart raced, but not with fear, with rage. They wanted him cornered. They would find he was not so easy to kill. He raised his gun. "Then we fight." The girl stepped closer, her silver glow wrapping around her like armor. Her voice was calm, but urgent. "You cannot face them alone. Trust me." David hesitated only for a second. Then he nodded. The first drone burst into his office, its red eye flashing. David fired, the bullet tearing through its core. Sparks exploded, the machine crashing to the floor. Two more followed. The girl lifted her hand, and a wave of silver light burst from her palm. The drones froze mid-air, their systems fried, and fell like stones. David's eyes widened. Her power was real, deadly. For the first time he felt the strange weight of fighting not as a man against men, but as a human standing at the edge of something far greater. The battle lasted minutes, but it felt like hours. Drones filled the tower, their red eyes scanning, their weapons firing. David fought with bullets, grit, and fury. The girl fought with energy that seemed older than the stars. Together, they pushed back wave after wave until the last machine fell in a smoking heap. David leaned against his desk, his chest heaving. The office was wrecked. Glass shattered, wires burning, smoke rising. Yet he still stood. The girl's silver eyes fixed on him. "Now you see. They will not stop. This was only a test." David wiped blood from his lip, his voice hard. "Then let them come again. I'll kill them all." Her voice grew sharper. "No. If you only fight, you will lose. They are not just soldiers and machines. They are networks. They are whispers in every ear. You cannot shoot shadows." Her words sank into him. He hated them, but he knew she was right. He had built his empire with strength, but this enemy could not be crushed by strength alone. He straightened, his voice calm but burning with fire. "Then teach me. Show me how to fight them." For the first time the girl smiled, not with joy, but with recognition. "You are ready, but know this. Once you step into this war, there is no return. You will never again be just a man. You will become a weapon." David looked around at the ruins of his office, the broken glass, the smoking drones. He felt the weight of loneliness, the sting of betrayal, and the fire of rage. He met her silver gaze and answered without hesitation. I already am. Outside the tower, the city lights glowed as if nothing had changed. But in the shadows, the enemy was watching, waiting, preparing. And David Kane, no longer just a man, had taken his first step into a war far greater than his empire. The night sky above the city burned red. From the top of his tower, David Kane watched as streaks of fire cut across the horizon. They were not meteors. They were ships, sleek, black, and silent, descending like hunters. The hidden enemy had shown its face at last. The alien girl stood beside him, her silver glow brighter than ever. She looked at him with calm eyes, but even she could not hide the tension in her voice. They are coming in full force now, not just drones. Soldiers, machines, minds that are not human. David's grip tightened on the rifle in his hands. His empire was already ashes. His people gone. His tower broken. He had nothing left to lose. Except himself. Then let's make them regret stepping into my city, he said. The first wave struck the lower floors. Explosions thundered up through the building. Fire and smoke poured from shattered windows. Black armored soldiers stormed the halls, their weapons glowing with unnatural light. David and the girl moved together. She unleashed bursts of silver energy that cut through walls and soldiers alike. They screamed as their weapons melted in their hands, their armor cracking under the alien light. David fought with raw fury, every bullet a roar of defiance. He knew he could not match their technology, but he had something they didn't. Rage, willpower, and the stubborn refusal to bow. Each corner of the tower became a battlefield. Each floor, a graveyard. By the time they reached the lobby, David's body was bruised, his arm bleeding, his lungs burning with smoke. Still, he stood tall, his eyes burning with fire. The lobby doors burst open, and then they arrived. Their leaders. 3 figures in dark robes stepped into the room, their faces hidden by masks of steel. Their voices spoke together, echoing unnaturally as if many throats spoke in one. David Kane, you should have fallen quietly. You should have accepted your end. Now you will suffer for you. Were defiance? David raised his rifle. Come and try. The girl placed a hand on his arm. Careful. These are not soldiers. These are minds bound to the network. They are the heart of the enemy. The figures raised their hands. Darkness spread across the room like a living shadow. Machines hidden in the walls came alive, crawling like insects. David felt the weight of it pressing on his chest, choking him. But he forced himself to stand, his teeth gritted. I've had enough of shadows. The battle that followed was unlike anything he had faced. The robed figures moved like ghosts, vanishing and reappearing with each strike. Their shadows wrapped around David, trying to choke him, drag him into darkness. He fired wildly, breaking machines, tearing through drones. The girl fought beside him, her silver light colliding with their black mist. The clash of their powers shook the very air. Walls cracked, glass shattered, fire rained down. At one point, David fell to his knees, the darkness coiling around his throat. He could not breathe. He could not see. But then he heard her voice, calm, firm, cutting through the chaos. Stand, David Kane. Stand, or all is lost. With the last of his strength, he forced himself up, tore free of the shadows, and fired point blank into one of the masked figures. The bullet struck true. The mask cracked. A scream tore through the lobby, and the figure collapsed into ash. The other 2 roared, their combined power surging like a storm. The girl unleashed her full strength. A wave of silver light exploded from her, blinding, burning, ripping the shadows apart. She staggered under the effort, her glow dimming. David seized the moment. He grabbed a fallen weapon, one of theirs, glowing with alien energy. Without hesitation, he fired. The beam cut through the second figure, dissolving it into nothing. The last enemy turned on him, rage burning in its hollow voice. It raised a hand to strike. But David did not hesitate. He charged forward, ramming the weapon into its chest. Light and Shan. Tao clashed in a final burst that shook the tower to its foundations. When the smoke cleared, the last figure was gone, and David Kane still stood. Silence filled the ruined lobby. The fire outside still burned, but the enemy's ships were retreating. For now, the city was safe. David dropped the weapon, his chest heaving, his hands trembling. His empire was gone, his tower broken, his body battered. But he had survived. The alien girl stood nearby, weak but alive. Her glow flickered like a dying flame. She looked at him, her voice faint but steady. This was only the beginning. David met her gaze, his jaw set. Then let them come again. I'll be ready. She gave a faint, tired smile. You will need more than rage. You will need allies. You cannot fight the universe alone. David turned to the shattered doors, watching the city beyond. For the first time, he saw not numbers or wealth, but people. Millions of lives moving under the same sky. Perhaps she was right. Perhaps this fight was larger than him. But one truth burned inside him like fire. He would never bow. The night was quiet again. The city lights glowed. But the war had only just begun. David Kane was no longer just a man with an empire. He was a man with a purpose. And somewhere in the shadows of the stars, the enemy was waiting.